Greetings, dear viewers. Welcome to the Diaspora Point. This is your host, Auma Bella. We have an outstanding guest today, a gentleman who briefed us on DRC Congo, a podcast that you guys really loved. You guys really loved what he had to say, and by popular demand, we have him back. So I'll pass on the floor to him to introduce himself. Mr. Petane, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thanks again, Bella. This is Petani again speaking from South Africa, and it's wonderful to be back in the platform to further discuss the issues happening in the Eastern DRC and hoping for fruitful discussions as we did last time.
Yes. You are a Pan-Africanist. And so you are very involved with African issues. And indeed, as I had mentioned, last time when you were with us, people really liked what you had to say. Now, it has been 2 weeks since we were on this platform talking about DRC. So we need to catch up now and get to know what really is happening as far as now. We understand that 5.6 million people are internally displaced already in Congo, in DRC, and we also understand that 230,000 are refugees, according to UNHCR. Now, we also understand that 7,000 people have died. So, where is this thing going? What is happening at the moment in terms of activities on the ground and based on what you know?
So right now, as we parted ways last week, 2 weeks ago, the situation has not improved much. It is still much the same, as we know that the M23 is in control of Goma now, and some parts of Kivu and Rabavu, one of the cities there in Eastern DRC. And what we know is that the soldiers from the Samidir mission have been actually encircled by the M23. So they're in their camps, but they're encircled and cut off from probably future supplies, which can run out any time from now. And it is showing an escalating challenge and tensions that we are witnessing in the Eastern DRC, where the M23 continues to flex its muscles and show that they are keen on continuing their stronghold in the Eastern DRC. So right now we can say that there is a war, but there is no war. So in a sense, we have seen many people have been displaced across the homes that they lived in that area. But the problem is that they are still much surrounded by the M23.
So it seems like these people are almost like hostage, right?
Yeah, basically a hostage situation of some sort, but a more diplomatic hostage situation.
Now,
So it's
a few
not so
countries,
of it.
a few Western countries have sanctioned Rwanda. They're accusing Rwanda of enabling the M23. And for a rebel group, M23 is very strong. What is the opinion out there that, regarding this Rwanda and M23 relationship?
Yeah, they indeed have thrown in some sanctions on the way to some of the leaders, of course, in the past of the M23, but also to Rwanda itself as a country. There are some sanctions that have been introduced so far, but I think that's not going to help a lot, because that is the same thing that happened in 2012 when the M23 took some of the areas in Eastern DRC. So it is not really helpful to say that around 13 years ago you imposed sanctions and now you also want to end the conflicts. by imposing sanctions. So in essence, what we have seen is that, yes, the sanctions have been imposed. We saw with Canada this week. The other week it was the UK, and then 3 weeks ago it was the Belgians who withdrew their funding to Rwanda, whom they have accused of supplying some of their soldiers to the M23, and not only that, but also helping with military. Some of the advanced military equipment that the M23 is on hold of. So that is probably what helped in 2012, but it having been a solution in 2012, a temporary solution of that to that matter. Because if it was a solution, we're not going to be here again. So that has since happened, but we saw with the resistance and some of the responses from the state of Rwanda saying that they are not faced by these sanctions. But we know that in the past, in 2012, they did work and they did budge. But in this time, they are kind of showing that they are willing to go all the way. But of course, it remains to be seen on the next few weeks what is going to be the move from the leaders in Kigali. But in essence and really speaking, the crisis of in the Eastern DRC cannot be solved only by imposing sanctions, because some of these countries who are today imposing sanctions are the same countries which freely trade and buy minerals from Rwanda when they know that they don't have mines in Rwanda, and those mines are in Eastern DRC. So their moral position is quite shaky, given how they've also taken part in this war when it was beneficial for them, but when it is no longer beneficial now, uh, they are on the side of imposing sanctions. But when we know that they've been benefiting from the ransacking that Rwanda and Uganda specifically have been doing, and causing the instability in Eastern DRC. But the challenges are not only external; they are also internal. With also what we have seen, the president of DRC, Tshisekedi, has returned to the United States to say that they are willing to negotiate a minerals deal with them, given that they are going to provide them with military protection in the
I
Eastern
saw
DRC.
that. I saw that they have approached the United States to make a deal with them to defend them or support them in this war, to your point, in exchange for minerals. How viable is that kind of deal?
I mean, the theoretics that we saw in the Oval Office 2 weeks ago with Zelensky and Trump, and that and J.D. Vance, the deputy president of the United States of America, and it is the same thing actually, that they wanted to say that, okay, we're going to provide you protection, and you have to sign the peace deal with Putin, but we want some of your minerals, which are very important for our interest. So in essence, what really is happening, or what really is happening at the end of the day, is that trying to make a deal with America for protection in Eastern DRC is definitely going to bed with the devil. But we're already in bed with the devil, so we just need to pick which devil is lesser, in the sense that now you have rallied the European countries to sanction Rwanda, but these Eastern countries also have interest in the minerals of DRC. So it is a very difficult geopolitical and local politics in the context of the DRC situation, in which now you overtly go to America for protection, a country which is known for human rights violation, plotting coups. We will not forget that America and the Belgians were involved in the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, the
Yeah,
leader of the
Patrice
DRC
Lumumba,
Congo in
yes.
the 60s.
Yeah.
Yes, so it is a very difficult situation. So I mean, I was saying that we find ourselves in a situation where we have to cheer for Western countries who have imposed sanctions on Rwanda, but at the same time, we have to remember the role. In fact, what we have to inquire is that where do they derive this power to be able to sanction other people and cause such economic hardships? So it's a very difficult situation. It's not easy, and some of the decisions that will be taken will be unpopular. But the challenge with the Eastern DRC challenge, or with the Eastern DRC problem, is that there are no obvious victims which we have to rally our voices behind, and pointing fingers at figures like Kagame and Tshisekedi as the only villains in this war is not completing the whole picture. And also, there are no obvious heroes in this crisis. So, it is a situation in which you don't have an obvious hero, you don't have a villain to condemn, and also you don't have perpetual victims to be able to bid your justice for. I
But
mean, even
but the
some of the
population, the population are obvious victims. Many are injured already, and 230 already refugees, and 5.6 million are internally displaced. And then you also have
yes,
another 7,000 dead. That is huge, isn't it?
yeah, it is huge. I mean, of course, and some people who were probably citizens in the past wars today have also been, because remember, there's also a number of different ethnic groupings who are found in the Eastern DRC. It's not only the Banyamulenge people. So even some people who were civilians at some point have now also decided to even take arms and defend themselves. That's why we have over 120 armed rebel groups in that community. So even some people who were probably victims in the other past wars today probably have formed groups to be able to defend themselves. So it's a very difficult situation. So those who find themselves in the other side of the crisis today, tomorrow can be tomorrow's villains, or today's victims can be tomorrow's heroes. So I think for me, the challenge is that the crisis is not one which can be resolved by a barrel of a gun. It needs real political solutions, and these political solutions have not been used or have not been followed. I mean, we know about the Luanda process, we know about the Nairobi process, we know about very different peace missions or diplomatic interventions that have been done in the past. But in reality, we are not going to be to resolve this challenge without looking at the core friction of core challenge of where the problem lies, and looking at it from the level of minerals only does not solve the problem, because the crisis and the confrontations were there before the minerals were discovered. I mean, minerals, the advanced technology of minerals is a very recent thing. So we need to be able to understand the challenge that it is not only minerals, but it also has to do with nationhood, identity, and a sense of belonging, which has been weaponized to fight wars of destabilizing other countries and exploiting the minerals which are found there.
I am hoping that former heads of state who are now assembling to get into this issue may probably be in a better position to do so, because the whole situation is messed up. I mean, seriously, DRC has looked to its neighbors to be real neighbors, and I think they have not been good neighbors. Everybody is trying to fend for themselves, and I don't think the neighbors have really been genuine, except, of course, there are some of the neighbors who have really sacrificed, have put in their troops there, have tried their best, like South Africa. But there are some neighbors, in this case where Rwanda is mentioned, and unfortunately for us, Kenya has not been looked at favorably. There was some suspicion about Kenya having M23 meet here in Kenya. And so I think DRC is in a bad shape. But to your point, making a deal with America is not going to be helpful at all, at all, at all. I mean, I can see this as a situation where something is attacking your butchery and then you bring the hyena to guard the butchery. It's not going to work. It's something that is just And everybody says so, and and here I am repeating what everybody thinks that I know. And so now something has to be done to help DRC. They have a huge army of more than 100,000. But apparently there's lack of discipline. They are not well paid, or they are not paid on time. And so they don't have that commitment. So this is a complete quagmire. I'm just trying to think, and it's not me to think, but I'm just wondering, where does this go?
I think before we understand where it is going, it is important to locate where it's coming from so that we can be able to make sound conclusions and suggestions of where the future lies. And the core and the crux of the problem lies with how Belgian colonialism divided people along our borders, and some were families who were once united and now have been divided across the borders, and that they did not they did not resolve those problems. So they just continued with how things were during colonialism, and post-colonialism we just got into a society in which did not resolve that question of the past. And the question of minerals comes in between as technology and the world progresses, when we find out that this mineral can be used for this mineral can be used for that, and then it becomes another source of conflict. So I think for me, where we have to go as a solution, we have to find solutions which are related to the ideas of how do we reimagine the complete overhaul of systems of colonialism and decolonization in the continent. And it's something that I think I probably said it in the last video, that Kwame Nkrumah's vision of what Africa is supposed to be was quite a correct position, because even the decision of the OAU in 1964 to keep the borders as they are, I mean, I was even making a joke with some of my friends in Kisumu that in a month's time, Museveni is going to come and say he's claiming back Kisumu, because we know that Kisumu was part of the Ugandan territory before the Queen decided that Kisumu now
Amin
belongs to
claimed
this side.
Kisumu at some point. You remember Amin, President Amin of Uganda?
Yes, yeah.
He
Amin
threatened to
was
come
even
and take
claiming
Kisumu.
Kisumu. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there are those questions which are existing in our global in the whole continent, and they are probably the most singlest biggest source of problems and conflicts in the continent. And I think for us to be able to resolve the crisis in the Eastern Congo, we have to think radically about how we are going to be able to resolve this problem, because they're not going to go away.
Yeah.
Even if you have the biggest guns in the world, if even you have the biggest military in the world, but if you are fighting people who are fighting for homeland, they are fighting for their survival, they are fighting for their ancestral understanding of where they belong, you will not be able to stop the people unless if you exterminate all of them, and which is not going to be possible. So we might have a ceasefire right now. We might have sanctions imposed on the way of Rwanda, but it is still going to come back, because we're not looking for solutions. We are looking for stopgaps into the challenge that we have in the Eastern DRC, which is a mirror of what the whole continent might look like in the future.
So now, back to these arbitrary boundaries, and families cut, one is on the other side of the fence, the other is on this side of the fence, purportedly countries, as drawn by the colonialists. Could this war ultimately be between the Hutus and the Tutsis? Clearly, of course, Kagame is a Tutsi. Is Tshisekedi a Hutu?
No, he's not. But
Okay.
the issue is that, as I said earlier, that the mistreatment of the Banyamulenge people
Yes.
in the Eastern DRC, I mean, even historically from the time of Mobutu,
Yes.
it is something which is well documented. So in history, there's been instances where the Tutsi people have been oppressed and also been marginalized. I mean, the evidence to point to the genocide in 1994.
Yes.
But also historically, they've also played a role in which they were the perpetrators, and also in collaboration with the Belgians in oppressing the Hutus. So to be able to answer the question if the war is going to happen between the Hutu and the Tutsis, you have to look onto where the potential war might be coming from, not only in the DRC but between Burundi and Rwanda.
Yes.
So yes, the war might lead to that on the side of Burundi and Rwanda. That is the potential of it happening on that side of
The border.
of the continent. Because yeah, I mean, if you've been paying attention, also there's been some very serious hot exchanges between the president of uh, of uh, of Burundi and the president of Rwanda, because we know. So if war starts in if war goes in the territory of Rwanda, it's going to spread definitely into the territory of Burundi because of the historical challenges that we have between the Hutu and the Tutsi in the Great Lakes of Africa.
Yes. Well, so we have a dilemma here, which we are just hoping that we do hope seriously that our somebody, because the SADC tried to get together with SADC is the Southern African, countries, got together with the East African community to try to solve the problem. And that didn't work out. There was a temporary ceasefire which did not hold. So we are hoping that, there would be a way to solve this problem. And of course, we here on this podcast don't have the capacity to solve this problem. We can only debate it, we can only talk about it, we can only sound off our audiences, but we can't do much about it. Now, what are your parting shots?
So I think for me, reality is that there's war coming in the Great Lakes of Africa. We don't know when. It might not be now, as it has happened in the past in 2012, where the M23 had made some movement and then they were pushed back because of sanctions. But the reality is that the positions that are taken by the government of Kagame in Kigali about the threat that the FDLR, who are in Eastern Kivu, pose to their national security are very valid. But also importantly, the weaponization of the challenges that are facing DRC internally and using them as a reason of why the M23 must advance all the way to Kinshasa are also politically disingenuous as a tool to try and meddle through the challenges that are happening in the Congo and also take power, because it works in the favor of Rwanda to have someone in Kinshasa as a president who is favorable to their ideas and their policies and what they want to achieve. So what we have seen in the past, I mean, in the first Congo War, in the second Congo War, and also we must not forget the role of Rwanda, of not only Rwanda, of Uganda, because in January, after the M23 seized power in Goma, the military of Uganda advanced to the side to the territory of Eastern DRC to also protect their interests that side. And we know that their arch enemy is the AFD, which is one of the rebel groups which are operating close to their borders with some of their concerns and gripes directed towards the regime in Kampala. So realistically, the challenges that we're facing from Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and Eastern DRC are historical challenges that were ignored in the advent of the end of formal colonialism in the 60s, and the decision to keep the borders as they are will keep haunting us. Unfortunately, this point must be stressed. It cannot be stressed more than enough. And it is something that is going to haunt the whole continent for a very long time until we are politically mature enough to be able to understand how we can be able to resolve it. We're not going to be able to resolve it because now we have to debate if really the Kingdom of Rwanda expanded towards the territory of Eastern DRC today or not. And if that's not the case, then the Banyamulenge people who are living there came and went to the territory of the people who live on that side in that time. So it is a historical debate. But going back into history to try and resolve it and say that this land belongs to whom, let's give it to whom, will not solve our problems, because our problems are not just only internal, but they are also external, with the fact that we have to deal with global imperialism. And now we are seeing how it is playing out with Western countries threatening to impose sanctions on. In fact, the sanctions even favor them because they are going to sanction things that they know that at the end they will benefit, not that they will benefit the citizens of our countries. So, in essence, the ideas and thoughts of Pan-Africanism, which have been relegated to the footnotes of history, unfortunately provide a guiding light towards solving the problems in the Eastern DRC, not only in the Eastern DRC, in the Sahel, in the Horn of Africa. And I was reading somewhere yesterday that we might be finding ourselves with yet another war between Eritrea and Ethiopia in consideration of the Pretoria Agreement, which was signed in 2022 here in South Africa. So now there's some challenges with the Tigray People's Liberation Front that they are not satisfied about some of the deals which were taken, so which will lead to a war between Eritrea and Ethiopia. So we have to learn from that.
So we have a dilemma because the thought of redrawing or undrawing these borders just seem like an impossibility. I don't know. But there could be a way for Africans to find how to coexist and how the governments in each of the countries where people are cut across the border would let those who are cut from their families on the other side live in peace wherever they are, because that's their ancestral land. There was a time when there was, some cheap politics going on in Kenya, and I'm talking about this in terms of the borders. And I remember some people saying, "Oh, Luos should go back to Sudan." And I thought that is preposterous because, everybody came from somewhere. People have moved around this continent massively. And if borders only just crossed, cut people, some are in that village, which is in Kenya, and the others are in this village, which is in Tanzania, like the Maasais. It's still one people. And if the relevant countries, head of countries or governments would just respect the fact that these people are here, we found them here. Okay, these imaginary lines called borders have cut through, and maybe the citizenship is on the other side, but we shouldn't tinker with their ancestral land. I think that would be the biggest key thing, because ancestral land is ancestral land. Nobody wants to be moved from their ancestral lands. That, I think, is a key issue that we should look at. Now, it is very difficult for people to be very honest about many things. Some people would be benefiting, from the situation in Congo, and people have benefited for a long time. People who feel that with chaos, they can get away with a lot of things. They can take the minerals and so on. Of course, the minerals is another issue, which is a very thorny issue there. But if we can solve somehow, these elders or the concerned persons can solve the problem with the respecting people's ancestral lands, I think that would be the first stage to pass through. Then the second one that anybody wants to play, I'm thinking that with the kind of sanctions against Rwanda, which is continuing, and mostly because those people are embarrassed. I mean, they may have been benefiting and will continue to probably from Rwanda's having access to all these minerals and sending to them. But I'm thinking that with this spotlight, negative spotlight, indeed, they are doing the right thing to let Rwanda know that they don't approve. Now, how long will that last? Nobody knows. What is the outcome? Maybe some outcomes, because, for example, Canada has indicated that they will not continue to have trade missions to Rwanda. They are not going to issue export licenses or import whatever licenses, trade licenses. And these are things that can affect a country's economy. And I think Rwanda may want to consider going through all the sanctions. Usually they work very slowly, but they are also not a permanent solution. Now, the sad thing, and which many people are just even shocked, after seeing how Zelensky was treated in the White House, any country thinking that they can bring the United States to defend them in exchange for what? I don't think that's a good idea. Nobody thinks that's a good idea at all. And so, again, we Africans, I think to some extent, we have let DRC down. We need to rally around DRC and help DRC solve these issues. I think that probably is one of the directions that should be looked at. Now, before I sign off, dear viewers, thank you for watching. Please do subscribe to our channel to keep us on the air so we can bring you wonderful guests with such in-depth thoughtfulness like we have here with Mr. Fitani. Please do subscribe, do like our podcast, and share widely. Thank you. Kwaheri. Bye-bye.